Really, really pleased that Summer Howarth is joining us for today. I'll do the introduction, then we'll bring it on, Summer. We like to do the official readout, so I'm going to do this properly. Hopefully it'll do you justice. Summer has been working in education for over 16 years. She doesn't look old enough. See, there you go. Smooth. She's been a teacher, education leader, policymaker, advocate and facilitator of learning for students and professionals across every system and sector in Australia, and works to ensure teachers have every support they need to succeed and thrive. She's expert knowledge in learning experience design and design thinking. I'm sure that will come up in some of what we talk about today. She tweets at EduSum. Welcome to the EduFuturist Summit and Awards, Summer Howarth.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, I'm so excited to be hanging out with you again. We had so much fun on your podcast. It was crazy.
Yeah, we try. We do try.
I was thinking there when Steve was on that, we were talking about after the podcast, we had a little chat about how could we make the summit online better, and what could we do to kind of, and we talked about maybe some surprises. We just had Steve and his baby on. What bigger surprise do we need?
It's about as good as it gets, really, apart from, a live birth, which just would have been next level. And I don't know that that's a surprise anyone needs.
Yes.
It's great that we've got coming up in just a little while. We've got David Price, who's obviously a good friend of yours.
Yes.
I was catching up on Twitter last night and seeing that you were sharing some airport stories. We should have got you two guys on at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that would have been so much fun. And the story that David was talking about, we were working with some teachers and students in Perth in Western Australia, and we completely were immersed in it. We got the time completely wrong, and we turned up to the airport to check in.
Tell us we missed the flight.
We completely missed the flight.
It was like the bloody Wild West. We were in the lounge with all those miners. There's about 700 miners, and they were shit-faced at about 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
We haven't got a bleeper, so...
sorry. Sorry.
That's all right. You're in safe company.
It was chaos, but it was fun, and that was part of a big tour of Australia that David and I were doing to work on a big project into student engagement in learning, which the legacy still lives on in that. So really, really ace to be here presenting with my friend David. So it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
That's brilliant. Summer, are you sharing a screen with us?
I sure am. So let me go ahead and do that. I am going to, at the moment, just be.
So just while Summer's doing that,
please.
Zaytoon has put a final comment, which has got a hoodie and t-shirt. She's put, "G'day." I'm going to look at these, see if it's any good. "G'day, Summer." I'm stuck there. I'm struggling next. I'm going to do it just where I am. "Good day, Summer. Looking forward to your presentation. I'm sure it will be sweet as, bro. Sweet as, bro." No.
No, good. Remember, if you want to be Australian, you put AH on the end of everything.
Okay.
Like summer.
Summer. There you go. There. "G'day, Summer." There you go. I don't know why I did that with my eyes and my eyebrows, but yeah. Well done,
Zaytoon.
Zaytoon.
Your whole body into an Australian accent.
Yeah. So as Summer is presenting for us today, please make sure you get your comments and questions in on the live feed, and we'll see if we can address some of them later on. And you can remember win some stuff. So here we go. Over to you, Summer.
Thank you so much. So today I want to share a couple of stories with you and some really tangible tips around this idea of teachers as a revolution. I've always been really invested in this concept of teacher-led innovation, and I know that it is our teachers who will drive system change, and they drive change in classrooms every day around the world. So four ideas that from all sorts of research I'm going to draw from, lived experience in schools through COVID and through some really big system changes. It's been big 4 months since we went into lockdown, and I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So we've just gone back into lockdown yesterday, and I really looked for some ways to really, I suppose, harness some of the lessons that we've had here to really acknowledge and celebrate as well teachers everywhere, but this whole idea of the revolution is here and now. So the very first thing, the big I word, innovation. We're often told we should innovate or be at the leading edge of innovation. It's a bit of a kind of naff word a bit. So looking at a bit of a definition of innovation, it's actually quite simple. Innovation is change that adds value. If we're not adding value to people's lives in terms of efficiencies, in terms of helping the quality of life, quality of learning, quality of space, then don't do anything. Innovate only if we're adding value. I love the Vic SRC. They are the Student Representative Council here in Victoria. It's actually legislated that students have a voice in education policy, also in things like hiring of staff in government schools. And most recently, they did a really big survey of about 10,000 students from littlies right up to big students. And they said one of the most profound things is think of this idea of success. What is it that we need to value most? And it's happiness and a happy life. So it was a really nice thing to hear that students know that school and our teachers' jobs is more than curriculum. You can look that up at studentvoiceheart.org. The big number 2, relationships. These are the sorts of things that have been tested for all of us through COVID, no matter what we define in terms of our personal life and also our professional life. Relationships are really important for teachers of the revolution because I'm telling you something you know here. Teaching is absolutely relational. But to dive a little bit deeper into it, we want to have a look at stuff that's coming out of, say, the Relationship Project, which is actually based in the UK, that relationships are actually like a contact sport. I love this idea, and as a rugby girl myself, I love this concept of a contact sport. You show up, you're showed up for, you chase, you check in, you counted, you return. It's this whole concept that it's not just something that happens because 2 people or a teacher in a classroom in front of each other. In fact, it involves that exchange as well. The third thing that is really required for the teachers of the revolution is this concept of technology. If you had have asked me before lockdown, I probably would have said this is a give or a take. But actually, technology, we know, has become at the forefront of what we have to do in order to amplify those first 2, innovation and also relationships. But honestly, often technology is seen as the enemy of warmth. It has been seen as something that is second to that face-to-face teaching experience. But when we're thrown into this whole idea of teach or don't, in a way, technology or not, it has become super important for us to think about our use of technology. And in fact, the research of thousands of people across the world has said that warm relationships, that is those sorts of relationships that are already existing, as in teachers and classes or teachers and principals, can be kept alive and even built by technology. But here's something for us to keep in mind. About 22% of people do not have access to the technology, to the applications, to the hardware that they require in order to participate in those relationship building activities. That includes classes, that includes learning, that includes connecting like we're doing right now. That means 22% of people are going completely without. This is going to involve not only our students. This isn't only just a case of our grandparents, for example, but this is also going to be our teachers. So we need to be aware of that, to think how is it that we can ensure that we share, disperse, diffuse the technologies that are required so that everybody can participate. We had a recent survey of approximately 10% of teachers across Australia. Pivot and Education Perfect have released some really great findings under Insights for Education. And they found that teachers in low-income schools were more likely to think that peer collaboration, instructional coaching, professional learning are critical to their ability to teach online. So our teachers of the revolution need to be learners of the revolution as well. And it comes down to how we learn together, how we help build the capability of others, and how it is that we engage in that consistent practice of getting better. And our fourth, which is incredibly important, is design, my favorite thing in the world. But in order to understand what it is, thinking like a designer, acting like a designer, we have to kind of understand what design is. And for me, it's simply the realization of an idea. We can go into all sorts of concepts here, thinking around something that is, beautiful, something that is functional, but essentially it's taking an idea into action. So here's a big question for all of us to consider as the teachers who are going to be making those profound changes, embedding them, locking them in, that we will be the generation of educators that they'll say it was because of them that things are as they are now. Let's make sure they're saying that in a great way. So here's a big question for us. What do we need to do right now to be able to look back on this year as the year when we not only helped each other in a crisis, and that's worldwide, but as the year when we changed for good? What is it that we are willing to keep? What is it that we are willing to bin? And what is it that we are willing to kind of sustain and grow and iterate? This whole concept of design really means that we question situations. And to question means that we are seeing and taking notice and participating in what's around us, that we are being open, and we are also engaging with our different environments, online, offline, close by, far away. And when we're doing this, this is how we find scenarios for making things better. This is where we start to question that status quo, and we're starting to think, could this be better, and could I do something about it? So I wanted to sort of share how the combination of innovation, relationships and technology, essentially design, has come together. The Northern Territory Learning Commission has been a piece of work I've been involved in with teachers all across our top end. The Commission is basically allowing students and teachers to work at the same level. Students are partners in their learning. We call them commissioners. They look at the school's data, they co-plan, co-design and co-implement a project to improve learning in their school. We've got 11 and 12-year-olds working alongside John Hattie, talking about qualitative and quantitative data. It's pretty extraordinary stuff. And of course, there's a bit of a snapshot on how this has changed this year. The end of 2019, there we were in Parliament pitching to the Minister our ideas for how we can improve literacy, attendance, how we can look at things like feedback loops. It was awesome. This stuff goes into school improvement plans for the whole system the next year. These teachers are leading a systemic revolution by making students partners in their planning and in their co-design. In February, we went up there as we do, and we worked with these extraordinary teachers. And I mean, they were getting their hands dirty. They were literally on the ground planning out what this would look like, sound like, and feel like if we were to have the most extraordinary schools, learning and profession possible. These teachers are diving deeply into each other's student data. It's pretty cool to see. Then, of course, March came around and we couldn't get on a plane. In fact, they are fake high fives. But we decided that we would broadcast into the territory because those teachers and the students demanded that we continue to keep these projects alive. And if that's not teaching and learning of a revolution, I don't know what is. So we were in Melbourne. We had our data scientists there. We had a big studio and we had around 200 students on board. In May, those students were leading then those projects alongside their teachers who were just doing some admin work with us in the background to tell us about inventions they had made into school improvement. This isn't sort of stuff around, how school can feel and be better. This is strong data around learning improvement. So it's a big difference there. What we did was we took something that was offline, made it online, and we've actually changed the status quo. So there'll be a short season for us as teachers of the revolution to lock in a new status quo, the new way that we do things, for signing a new social contract with schools, teachers, learners and society. And what I mean is that agreement with the broader society of the purpose and function of school, of the role of a teacher and the role of a learner as well. Now is the time where we get to renegotiate the terms of that contract and lock it in for the next generation. We're here in a season of possibility. And what matters now is what we make of that season. So remember this, that teaching is not our job. Teaching is our passion. Getting better at teaching is our job. Thank you so much for having me along. If you want to keep the conversation up, keep chatting, you can find me tweetering away around all things learning, all things innovation, design, snacks, dash hounds, often raging at Prime Minister at EduSum on Twitter. Please feel free to drop me a line as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Summer. Let me just sort the screen out here. I don't know why I'm big. There we go. Thank you for sharing that. We've got a few comments in there. One from Rachel, quote up there. Love that innovation is changing. It adds value. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks for it. I think it's so important, isn't it, that teachers do have that freedom to innovate and to have that. And I think it goes back to what we were saying at the start of the day about that kind of the bears in the room, the bears in education in terms of causing disruption. And I think one of those is the fact that sometimes we don't have the freedom to innovate in the way that we might like to because there are other pressures on in terms of exams, in terms of inspections. But yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, it was really good. That adding value, that's the thing, isn't it? You read that phrase in schools, value added. What's the value added? And it's then it becomes a measure, like as if like that's some kind of like number. And like, hold on a minute, it's like people. There's things that can't be measured. Like numerically, measured in a different way, isn't it? So thank you so much for that. And
an absolute pleasure.
Is it in the middle of the night there?
It's half an hour to midnight. So I'm definitely in the future right now.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Well, that's it. That's the reason why you can speak into your past, because you're from the future. Look, it looks like some kind of cyborg from the future.
Everything's going to be okay, everyone. I promise you, today's a good day.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for joining us.